Hello, everyone. I am excited because I'm doing a series on Black women philosophers, and I'm starting with my Spelman sisters. And today I have with me one of my beloved Spelman sisters, who's also part of Belle Vie Writers, Dr. Spencer Alexandria Nabors. So I'm excited to get into all things Black women philosophy and Spelman and the Academy and writing and all the things. So of course I'm Dr. Catherine Sophia Bell, and I did all the things that Black women are told we're supposed to do. I got all the degrees. I was married. I had all the kids. I had a successful career. I was raised in church. I had it all, and I felt trapped by all of it. So I liberated myself. And now I'm on this journey of sharing my own liberation journey to encourage other people who are pursuing their own liberation journeys. And part of that is just being in conversation with people like Dr. Spencer Alexandria Nabors, who is with me today. So I'm excited to have her with me here today for this Black Women Philosophers series. So Dr. Spencer Alexandria Nabors earned her BA from Spelman College in 2020 and her PhD from Northwestern University in 2025. She is a former Mellon Mays Research Fellow and also holds a ministry license. I saw that you also did some work with coaching the debate team when you were at Northwestern in Evanston. She's currently a Provost Distinguished Faculty Fellow and also Assistant Professor of Philosophy at Georgetown University. And her specializations include philosophy of race, critical phenomenology, and social epistemology. So, Spencer, welcome to the YouTube channel. Welcome
Thank
to
you.
yeah, I'm happy to have you here. I'm happy to have you here. So let's get started with, obviously I'm kind of starting with my Spelman sisters here. So let's start with your Spelman experience. Tell me about your Spelman experience and how that was for you.
Yeah, Spelman was amazing. Um, I knew I wanted to go to Spelman when I was in high school.
Mhm.
Um, so that's actually the only school that I ended up applying to.
I
Um,
love this. Okay.
so I was just so excited to be there when I stepped on campus as a freshman. Um, and I mean, just being surrounded by Black women
Hmm.
was so special. I hold that so near and dear to my heart, even to
Hmm.
Um, and academically, I think that was so important for me.
Hmm.
Um, Talking with Black women in my philosophy classes
Hmm.
and in all my classes, really, women's studies, whatever it was. But also the social scene at Spelman is great.
Yes.
I just had the best time. I was in all the clubs and organizations. I feel like I went to all the parties. So I
Yes.
definitely had an active social life as well. And
Hmm.
like many people, I mean, the friends that I made at Spelman are my closest friends today.
Hmm.
Mm. So Spelman was just so special for me.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. Okay, so let's dig a little deeper into that because you dropped a couple different gems there. So one, let's start with you only applied to Spelman College because there are some people who are like, I'm applying to 25 schools and I'm doing all of this. So you were very intentional and focused on Spelman. How was that for you? Did that feel like a stretch for you to be like, oh, I'm putting all of my eggs in this basket? Was there any anxiety or fear around that? Or you were you just like, I'm going to Spelman, that's the only place I'm applying, and if that doesn't work out, I'll have to reapply or something? Like, what was your thinking going into that?
So I was pretty confident, I'll say.
Hmm.
Um I did end up going to like an honors sort of program summer thing at Hampton.
Hmm.
And so through that program I got admission to Hampton even though I didn't have to like go through the
Formally
formal
apply.
application
Hmm.
process. Um so the only thing that I sort of formally the school that I formally applied to was Spelman.
Hmm.
Also got that acceptance at Hampton. Um,
Okay.
and that became a little bit difficult with my parents because
Mm.
I got a full ride to Hampton
Oh, wow.
not get
Yeah.
a full ride to Spelman.
Yeah.
So trying to convince them
Yes.
Bill had to go to Spelman was obviously hard. College is expensive and
Yes.
did get some scholarships from Spelman, which was great and helpful, but not
Hmm.
a full ride.
Yeah, not a full scholarship.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, what made the decision easy for me um,
Hmm.
was that Spelman had a philosophy major.
Hmm.
Sorry, my dog is barking.
That's okay.
But I knew in high school that I wanted to study philosophy.
Hmm.
Um, and Hampton didn't have a philosophy major, so I just tried to convince them that that's what I wanted. And of course, my parents were like, "You're going to change your major. You can't make any money with philosophy." all that
All
kind
the things.
of
Okay, so
stuff.
tell me more about this because my next question, because you led with like, oh, I love the conversations in my philosophy classes and all of my classes. So I was going to ask you, did you start out as a philosophy major or did you kind of change majors? But it sounds like for you, you knew going into college you wanted to major in philosophy. So I absolutely would love to hear how you formulated that as a high school student going to college, or like at what point did you decide I want to major in philosophy, I want to study philosophy, and what was your entry point or exposure to philosophy?
Right. So I mostly grew up in Michigan, but my
Mm-hmm.
family moved to Evanston
Mm-hmm.
the summer before my senior year of high school.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know anybody. I didn't have any friends really in Evanston.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I spent like the majority of that summer in the local Barnes and Noble.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I love to read. I've always loved to read, but I
Mm-hmm.
found myself reading all over, but the books that I liked or enjoyed reading the most were in the little philosophy section at Barnes and Noble.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's what made the decision for me, really.
Wow.
I remember I read this book called The Purity Myth.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed that one. I found that in the philosophy section at Barnes and Noble.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I just loved those books, and I
Mm-hmm.
figured I should study this in college. I mean, I don't think I had a real understanding of what philosophy was just by
Yeah.
reading those books, but I knew that that was what I wanted to do.
This
Yeah.
is fascinating to me because it's not, it's not like you took a class that had a philosophy text in it. You literally are like going to Barnes and Noble to read, to be engaged as you've moved to this new town, this new city, and don't really know a lot of people. You're drawn to the philosophy section and you're reading philosophy books and you're like, yeah, this is what I want to do.
Mhm.
I love this. Okay, so you talked about going to Spelman, knowing that you wanted to study philosophy, having to convince your parents both to pay tuition at Spelman as opposed to doing the full ride at Hampton, and also
Mm.
that you wanted to do a philosophy major, and the whole assumption like, what are you going to do with that? How are you going to make money doing that? But then you also mentioned how you kind of maximized your opportunities when you were at Spelman in terms of the social scene, the classes, the
Mhm.
kind of activities that you were involved in, but also partying. So let's talk a little bit about that because I think some people in college find a hard time finding that balance between like the studying, the partying, the student activities. So how did you strike that balance while you were there?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I loved class and I won't say studying per se,
Mm-hmm.
but I loved doing the readings for my philosophy classes,
Mm-hmm.
especially. I also took a bunch of religion classes. I specifically took the religion classes at Morehouse.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked the professors over there, and they did a lot
Mm-hmm.
of like Black theology stuff that I was really interested in.
Yeah.
Okay, so I loved class, and I actually ended up auditing a bunch of classes, which my mom used to make fun of me. She was like, "Why are you just going to classes that you're not enrolled in?" But um, I enjoyed learning, I guess.
Yeah. I
Um,
love it.
so I enjoyed doing all of that, and I did spend the time studying for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like I have good work-life balance.
Mm-hmm.
I was not the person who was staying at the library all night. My
Yeah.
freshman year roommate would come home from the library at like 4 a.m.
Wow.
That could never be me.
Yeah.
I was like in the bed, or, if it was during the week, or I would prioritize going to a party.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm glad that I started doing that in undergrad and
Yeah.
prioritizing those things because that has been helpful to me through grad school and even now.
Yes.
Um, I am intentional about not working past a certain hour or
Mm-hmm.
like not working on Sundays, for instance.
Yeah.
I started that in undergrad. I just was not gonna do schoolwork on Sunday, which
Yeah.
is a prime day for people to sort of get ready for the week and go to the library, but I wasn't touching anything on Sunday.
I
Um,
love this.
yeah, and I don't even know why I picked Sundays, but me and my friends used to hang out and go to brunch, and I was like, I'm not doing any work.
Yeah.
Mm. So yeah, I wanted to go out to all the parties and have a social life. Yeah.
I love that you established that very early on because for some people, they're deep into their careers. Well, some people never find that balance or have that nuance or set that intention. So I love that at such a young age and at such an early part of like the beginning of your academic career as an undergrad, you had already started establishing those habits and maintaining those habits. What was your so it sounds like you already knew you wanted to do philosophy going into college. Did you also know going into undergrad at Spelman that you definitely wanted to go to grad school and do the PhD in philosophy?
No.
Okay.
I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I
Mm-hmm.
suppose I had random thoughts about law school potentially.
Mm-hmm.
I thought about doing a PhD in religion and focusing
Mm-hmm.
on like Black theology.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it kind of ended up coming to me maybe sophomore year or so when I just loved the philosophy classes.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone who knows me in college knows I used to carry around like a stack of books
Mm-hmm.
because if I had any free time or had to sit and wait for something, I was opening up my philosophy books and reading them because I
Mm-hmm.
just enjoyed them that much.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of was the natural progression for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then especially once I started the Mellon Mays Research Fellowship,
Yes.
they are big about pushing the PhD.
Mm-hmm.
So um, I think prior to that fellowship, I didn't realize that I could go straight from undergrad into the PhD, but that
Mm-hmm.
program made me realize that that was an option,
Yeah.
um, and that became the goal for me.
I love it. Okay, so by sophomore year, you're decide like you had already known you wanted to do philosophy going into Spelman. You're taking your philosophy classes. You're in philosophy at Spelman is philosophy and religion. The departments are joined at Spelman, and then you're also taking these religion classes at Morehouse. Sophomore year, you become a Mellon Mays fellow, and you're looking toward the PhD. And in philosophy, in particular, you decide to go philosophy rather than religion. Was there anything else that happened in your Spelman experience that? Well, I guess the next question is actually why Northwestern? So how do you go from Spelman to Northwestern? Were there other contenders? What was that decision point for you?
Yeah. So freshman year, I took a philosophy class where we read Jose Medina's Epistemology of Resistance, and that
Hmm.
was my favorite book I've ever read.
I love it. Shout out to
Um,
Jose. We overlapped at Vanderbilt for a while.
yeah. So actually, I think this was early on in my freshman year, and I think he actually was still at Vanderbilt at the time.
Hmm.
Or whenever I Googled him, maybe it's still
Hmm.
Vanderbilt, even if he had moved already. So
Hmm.
in my head, I thought maybe I'll go to Vanderbilt.
Ah, okay.
Um, and then he, of course, ended up moving to Northwestern.
Hmm.
The summer after my junior year, oh, well, let me backtrack.
Hmm.
Sophomore year, because I'm from Evanston, my parents still live there.
Hmm.
Reached out to him, I want to say during a winter break, and was
Hmm.
like, love your book. I think I had a question about something
Hmm.
in the book, and I
Hmm.
asked if he would be willing to meet with me, and he said
Yeah,
yes.
I love it.
Um, so it was actually such a great opportunity. He agreed to meet with me, and he
Hmm.
also was like, I'm having coffee with Charles Mills. Do you want to come?
Yes.
And I was just like a little sophomore. I was like, absolutely, I want to come. So that was amazing. And then the following summer, he had encouraged me to apply to a summer research program at Northwestern.
Okay.
That program
Hmm.
and worked with him throughout the entire summer after my junior year.
Hmm.
And I ended up getting an early admission to Northwestern's PhD program because
Hmm.
um, research summer allowed me to apply early.
Okay.
I didn't apply anywhere else because I knew I wanted to work with him.
I love this story. So two for two, you're like, you know
Yes.
what? I'm going to Spelman. I'm going to Northwestern. I also love this story of you reaching out to Jose because I think it takes a lot, especially for an undergraduate student, sometimes they can feel intimidated. So I love that you're like, I love this book. I'm in Evanston. He's in Evanston. Like, let me reach out. So I love that you reached out. Jose is very generous and kind and a great human being. So I'm not surprised that he agreed to meet with you. And also was just like, oh, and Charles Mills, by the way, is around. So if you want to meet Charles Mills, you can also meet Charles Mills. So I love that that was like your entry point into like some, the some of the great philosophers that are, in the industry. Charles Mills has since passed away, so I'm also glad that you got an opportunity to meet him and engage with him before he passed away. And so it just sounds like things have been so aligned for you, and I love this so much. of course, you know this from the La Belle Vie Writers space and La Belle Vie Academy space. I'm somebody who really does try to encourage like ease and flow. And so I just love the ease and flow of this, which doesn't mean it was easy because you have to
Right.
do the work, right? Like you have to do the work of your classes, you have to do the work of the research, you have to do the work of applying. And, once you get into grad school, do that work. But I love the ease of like things being aligned and you being able to flow with that alignment. And not sometimes when things are to flow with this kind of ease, people create catastrophes for
Right.
themselves because they feel like it has to be a particular kind of hard. But I love this consistency in terms of like the ease of your decision to go to Spelman and that working out and your decision to go to Northwestern. Of course, if for some reason it didn't work out, I'm sure you could have pivoted, but I love that you have like these two very clear examples of like, this is what I want and manifesting that thing and walking into that thing.
Yes.
Okay, so talk to me a bit about your experience at Northwestern. So at this point, you have some familiarity because you've already made contact with Jose. You've done this summer research program, so you're not going in like not knowing anybody there or anything there. But what was that transition? Well, actually, did you have was there anything interesting that happened between wrapping up at Spelman and going to Northwestern? Because you went straight through into the PhD, so you didn't take a break or anything like that. But what was there any kind of interesting things that happened between you finishing up at Spelman and then going to Northwestern?
Well, COVID. So my senior year was the start of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So we went online, we went virtual, uh,
Mm-hmm.
no graduation, which was
Oh,
disappointing.
yeah.
So th that made the transition perhaps a little strange, and I think it's
Mm-hmm.
to feel like you're making a transition when you don't have those sort of traditions like graduation
Yeah.
happen. So then, of course, I moved to Chicago. This was my first time living by myself in an apartment, so I felt real grown up, but also
Mm-hmm.
the world was closed, so I wasn't
Yeah.
doing much of anything. Um, and I started virtually at Northwestern as well. So
Okay.
I think that made the transition. Well, I suppose it's hard to say whether it made it harder
Harder or easier.
or easier, but
Mm-hmm.
I think it made it harder
Yeah.
because not only do you have this intense amount of work to do, reading, and I think it feels very isolating already.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not in person, and I'm not really connecting with people.
Mm-hmm.
So it felt a bit isolating that first year.
Yeah.
Um, it also felt hard, I think, of course, but I never felt like I was less capable.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say that.
Yeah.
But um, the majority of my cohort came in with a master's already, and what I
Mm-hmm.
felt was that they were more well-read and
Mm-hmm.
had better experience with navigating grad school and philosophy
Mm-hmm.
that I didn't have. So,
Okay.
so not about being less intelligent, but I
Yeah.
felt that gap.
Okay. So people coming in with a master's, of course, would have had 2 more years of reading and coursework and things like that. And it's a little bit of a different bridge from the bachelor's to the master's to the PhD versus from the bachelor's straight into the PhD
Yeah.
program.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's
So,
good to name that.
yeah, and they also, a lot of them were coming from Ivy League schools and
Mm-hmm.
sharing experiences at, XYZ conference and
Mm-hmm.
whatever school. I don't know. I
Yeah.
just felt a little bit left out, although I will say it came in with a Howard student, which was amazing for me.
Yes. So shout out to HBCUs and the very important work that they do in terms of preparing students not only academically but also like emotionally and socially, right? There, I think there is a certain kind of confidence and encouragement that comes like that you get positively reinforced in an HBCU and experience that you're not going to get at a predominantly white institution at the undergrad level. So I'm glad that you and the Howard student had that going into Northwestern. Again, I'm also glad that you had this previous experience with Jose and with Charles going in so that you weren't feeling like you were completely coming in, from the outside. I think you had a connection going in that I think is good. And I'm glad that going back to your experience at Spelman, I'm glad that you partied and socialized and enjoyed those things while you could, because when things shut down, sometimes we're like, oh, well, next year or after this, then I'll get outside and I'll do the things. And so I'm glad that you were able to enjoy like a very robust social life ahead of things shutting down for the time that they shut down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So when did things start to shift or if at all, like how did things shift as like post-COVID, classes are going from online to in person. How was that transition for you during grad school?
It actually felt kind of nice just to be around people, although I had some, I'll say rough issues with other students.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was, I just felt like I was experiencing extreme levels of microaggressions,
Mm-hmm.
um, questioning the type of philosophy that I do. Is that
Mm-hmm.
philosophy? Those sorts of questions and comments. That
Mm-hmm.
was especially hard for me.
Yeah.
Going back into the flow of being in person was nice and just
Yeah.
having a sort of schedule of leaving the house. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it was also my first year TAing. So it was kind of getting thrown into a lot. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but that was the transition. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this because, of course, like when it's in terms of like how your specializations are listed on George Western's site, you have like philosophy of race, critical phenomenology, and social epistemology, right? Like, I mean, you don't get more analytic than epistemology, right? So, in terms of like how philosophy is conceived for people who are not in philosophy, the dominant kind of form of philosophy that gets done in the U.S. is like analytic philosophy. There are some people that do continental philosophy that's considered somewhat marginal in the broader scheme of things in the U.S. context. And then even within continental philosophy, if you're doing something like race or feminism and other kinds of things, that can also be marginalized, which often to me was so fascinating that the continental people felt marginalized by the analytic people, but then also wanted to marginalize other people who were doing certain kind of things. Now, when it comes to what constitutes philosophy for me, the gate is very wide for me because my thing is if the pre-Socratics, like if the pre-Socratic fragments count, then if Thales' water counts, then anything goes, right? So the bar for what constitutes philosophy is not necessarily that high, but it's interesting that there are these gatekeepers out there who want to, regulate what counts as legitimate or rigorous philosophy and what doesn't. So it's unfortunate that you had to deal with that, but that's also part of what the profession is about. So I think it's nice to have these pockets of spaces where you are centered and the work you're doing is valued and, within a larger kind of professional framework of philosophy in the US, academic philosophy in the US, that's not necessarily surprising. So, how did you navigate and negotiate that as a graduate student?
Yeah, I think that was hard. I mean, even the continental analytic divide, I still don't really know where I stand and
Yeah.
where my work lies in that divide. And
Mm-hmm.
I definitely didn't know coming into grad school, and it felt like all that anyone was talking about was continental analytic, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
what kind of philosophy do you do? And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know. I will say I came in with a cohort of people doing a wide range of
Mm-hmm.
philosophy, which was nice to see. But
Yeah.
at the same time, even those people who did a wide range of stuff were still sort of marginalizing philosophy of race.
Mm-hmm.
So it was hard. I
Yeah.
will say I had a lot of issues um, with folks questioning my work,
Mm-hmm.
but it was entirely from the students. I never
Mm.
had issues from the professors.
Okay.
I really appreciate. Uh,
Yeah.
the professors were more than supportive of the kind of work that I was doing,
Mm-hmm.
even if they were, so far from anything around race, right?
Yeah.
So that was helpful to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think it's hard in philosophy in general. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, it just seems like there's so many pockets where if you don't do it this way, then you can't
Mm-hmm.
be in this group.
Yeah. But that's
I,
also helpful information. So one thing I'm thinking about is I think part of it is like coming from Spelman, philosophy was philosophy. So we weren't getting into like this is continental and this is analytic and this counts and this doesn't count because there was just a different kind of embracing of philosophy, both like people who were like literally had PhDs in philosophy and then other works that were philosophically interesting that weren't that the people writing it weren't necessarily PhDs in philosophy. So I think part of it is coming from an environment where it's more a much more inclusive environment and a much more diverse environment in terms of what constitutes philosophy and how philosophy is read and done and written and those kinds of things. I think it is, I'm glad that you mentioned that it was the students and not the faculty that were the issue there, because it's interesting who self appoints in terms of like how they get to dictate and determine. It's just like you're in the same program as I am. You are actually my peer. So I'm glad that you got support from the faculty, even though you weren't necessarily getting support from the cohort. And the interesting thing is the same people that want to be shady as graduate students are the ones that are haters when you actually progress and advance doing what they said didn't count. And then, some of them doing the same old thing are not getting anywhere because people are interested in, they're just different questions that need to be asked at this point. So I'm glad that you had support at least from the
Yeah,
faculty.
yeah, yeah. I will say, I mean, the folks in my cohort, and it wasn't everyone, but who were haters and didn't think that I was doing philosophy. I am the only person in the cohort as of right now who has finished.
That
So
part. That
I
part. Well, and I
could
think there's a lesson in that. I think there's a couple of lessons in that. Like one, again, I'm glad that you came in with a certain level. Like even if there are, there's transitions, there's fears, there's, insecurities that come up. That's just part of the process of progressing in anything, but especially progressing in like a graduate program and a PhD program. So that is like a normal thing. But I'm glad that you had enough, again, support, whether it's internal or external, again, from faculty and things like that to persevere and push forward and not let, like, even if it bothered you at times, you didn't let it stop you or push you out or anything like that. Like, you kind of kept your eyes on the prize and what you wanted to do and move forward with that. And, some of the people who are haters, it's like if you put as much energy into what you claim is the real philosophy that you're doing instead of focusing on what I'm doing over here, then, you might have some different outcomes. But congratulations to you and your brilliance and amazingness and fabulousness for your well-deserved both provost fellowship and assistant professor position.
thank
Georgetown is very fortunate to have you.
thank you. That's so sweet. Thank you.
Yes. So let's talk a little bit about that. So you went straight from Spelman to graduate school. You finished grad school within 5 years. So you're the first of your cohort to finish of that cohort. What was the job market like for you in terms of going on the job market? What kind of jobs you applied to? What was that experience like for you?
Yeah. Before I answer that, I just wanted to say, because you mentioned something about Spelman that I wanted to touch on. I
Okay.
don't think there's any way that I would be here or would do philosophy if I had not gone to Spelman.
Yes.
And maybe an HBCU in general, but
Yeah.
definitely Spelman.
Yeah.
Just the kinds of philosophy that we were doing, everything was coming from a Black feminist framework.
Yes.
Philosophy was Black feminist ancient philosophy, right?
Yeah.
And it allowed me to see myself in philosophy in ways that I
Yes.
don't think I could have. Certainly not at a predominantly white institution,
Yes.
but perhaps even at other HBCUs,
Yeah.
in sort of gender dynamics.
Yes.
So I think Spelman is so, so crucial to my journey as a philosopher.
Yes, I'm so glad that you took a moment to like put a pin in that because I think you have also seen the conversation with Lena and I, and we also talked about this where I was just like, I don't think if I had gone to a predominantly white institution, I would have stuck with philosophy, right? Like the way it was done at Spelman was very accessible, was very like, again, race, class, and gender were always at the center, whether you were talking about Kant or Aristotle or Patricia
Right.
Collins or Angela Davis or Bell Hooks or whomever. So I think there is a very special intentional way that they do philosophy that encourages people to see themselves in philosophy and as philosophers and able to get the PhD in philosophy. And fun fact that I often share too is Spelman has produced the most Black women PhDs in philosophy, right? So there are only about 50 of us doing it, right? But the majority percentage of us that have gone on to get PhDs went to Spelman College, and I think you're naming exactly. I think you're naming part of why that is the case. So yeah, I appreciate you coming back to really emphasize and reinforce that because I think that is a thing. And I appreciate you naming like even at other HBCUs, the gender dynamics and gender politics may not lead to the same kind of outcomes
Right.
in terms of like the percentage of Black women going on to earn PhDs in philosophy. So yeah, so basically, Spelman is fabulous and amazing, and shout out, shout out to Spelman. Okay, so yeah, going on to the transitioning from, grad school and all of that kind of stuff and going on to the job market, what was that like for you?
Right. So I think while I was at Northwestern, the average time to finish the PhD was around 7 years.
Hmm.
So I went in knowing that, but I also asked a lot of people, is it possible to finish in 5?
Yes. Yes.
And the answer was typically no,
Hmm.
or that it hasn't been done. Professors were like, I've been here 15 years and it hasn't been done since I've been here.
Yeah.
So I knew that in the back of my head. I figured I maybe would take 6 years
Hmm.
because I did not want to take 7.
Right.
But I was like, I'm gonna aim for 5.
Yeah.
That's
Because why not? But actually,
Yeah.
can we pause here really quickly? What was the funding set up? So like I know like when I went to, and of course I went to grad school over 20 years ago, but when I went to grad school, it was a 5-year funding package that you could usually work out some ways to extend that funding out. So people did typically take like 7, 8 years to finish. I got a 5-year funding package and I finished in 4 years. When I was at Vanderbilt as well as Penn State, we gave 5-year funding packages. And again, there were ways to kind of maneuver that a little bit to squeeze more funding out, but the typical package was 5 years. So was Northwestern's package a 5-year package and people were figuring out how to add on money or taking out loans for those additional 2 years? Like what was the setup for the for your funding package?
Yeah. So I remember during my visit weekend, once I got accepted, they
Hmm.
were saying the package is 5 years, but like everyone gets 6 years.
Okay.
Don't have to worry about a sixth year. Everyone
Okay.
gets 6 years.
Okay.
And then most people also get a seventh. Um,
Okay.
so the sixth year was kind of expected. Now that
Hmm.
did get a little wonky when I was at Northwestern with some union stuff, and
Hmm.
um, they increased our grad student stipend, and then the university came back and was like, "But we're gonna stop allowing folks to spend so much time. We're gonna stop
Yeah.
so many extra years."
Hmm.
Um, but I think folks are still getting like that sixth year. That's kind of expected.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, but it was a 5-year package. And in
Yeah.
my, if it's a 5-year package, I
You're
can't
finishing in
do it
five
in
years.
five. Yeah.
Yes. No, I
So
love that determination and focus. Go ahead. You were about to say
yeah,
something else.
yeah, yeah. So during my fourth year,
Hmm.
well, obviously, I guess after my third year, I was working on the dissertation.
Hmm.
And there was a course that we could take at Northwestern spring semester before you're about to go on the job market,
Hmm.
just to get your materials together and talk about all things job market.
Hmm.
And so in my fourth year, I was like, I think I want to take this class.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to go on the job market, but I want to try. I don't know
Hmm.
where I was in the dissertation at that point, but probably not like where I technically needed to be. But I was like, I'm going to take the course.
Hmm.
I took the course and got my job market materials together. And I think at some point that semester, Jose was kind of like, you can go on the job market if you get, this much done.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I got that
Hmm.
much done and went on
Hmm.
the job market. Um, I was picky. Um,
Hmm.
I applied to maybe 9 jobs.
Okay.
Um, I only chose like locations that I would be happy to live
Yeah.
in. And I
Yes.
mean, I know a lot of people who are on the market with me were applying to like 50 jobs, and I just wasn't
Yeah. Well, of
was
course, based on your track record up to that point, you're just like, that's not the thing that I do.
not at all. Yeah. Um, so I applied to a bunch of jobs, and funny enough, I remember my professor Corey Barnes.
Hmm.
We were looking at Phil jobs, and he was like, Georgetown, that's the job. That's going to be the top job. Like,
Mm.
that's the one you want.
Yeah.
Like, could I get it though? And he was like, yes, you could. You're capable.
Yes. I
Um,
love it. Shout out
and
to Corey.
yeah, I remember that conversation a lot now
Hmm.
because I needed to hear that.
Yes.
Sometimes you have to hear that you're capable of doing something.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, the job market, it was very hard. I
Yeah.
felt miserable during the job market process.
Hmm.
I just was putting so much time into the applications.
Hmm.
Interviews were hard. It was
Hmm.
very hard.
Yeah. Okay, I want to backtrack a little bit and then come back to the job, the challenges of being on the job market. I want to backtrack to because we were just talking about funding. So just in case they're like undergraduates watching this who don't really understand, like, well, what do they mean by funding packages and all of that kind of stuff? So when I used to do a lot of recruiting of Black women into philosophy, one of the ways that I would explain is like one of the main differences between like getting a PhD in philosophy versus going to like medical school or law school, although you could get scholarships to medical school and law school, generally speaking, you're going to get like a full scholarship going into a PhD program that also includes some kind of stipend or assistantship for you to live off of. And then the assistantship usually comes with some kind of responsibility. Sometimes it's like maybe you don't have to do anything your first year, but then you have to do like be a TA or be a grader or be a research assistant or something like that. And then sometimes eventually you're going to teach your own classes or do your own lectures or whatever the case may be. So there's usually some kind of responsibilities in addition to your classes, but they're still aligned with like becoming a philosophy professor. So when we're talking about funding packages in like the 5 years and 6 years and 7 years, that's what we're talking about. So generally, you're going to get a full scholarship where you don't have to worry about the tuition, but you're also getting money that you can actually live off of. So you're not, again, depending on where you live and what a livable wage is and the cost of living where you are, generally, sometimes people are able to actually live off of their stipend. So they're not trying to like work a part-time job while they're in grad school and stuff like that. So just to say that for people who may not understand the funding and the package part that we're talking about. Okay, job market wise, I love that. Like sometimes we used to call it a soft launch if somebody went on the market when they're kind of still in the early stages of the dissertation. And it's like, okay, well, if you get a job, great, that's motivation to keep going. But if not, at least you've kind of practiced doing the applications and the interview and all of that kind of stuff. And you can kind of go back on the next year, especially if you still have another year or two of funding. So I love that you, again, knew internally, intuitively, spiritually, whatever you were tapping into, like, let me take this kind of professionalization class to get my materials together for the market. I'm glad you got the encouragement that you got, like, this is the job to get, and yes, you have what it takes to go after this job and do well in this job. But you talked about how hard it is. So can we talk about that a little bit again? And I think this will be helpful for people who might be in graduate school now and about to go on the job market, just the different elements of applying for jobs and what was challenging for you and how you dealt with those challenges.
Mhm. Yeah, so it was I guess a big like application packet that I had to
Hmm.
get together for each school, which would
Hmm.
include a cover letter, a
Hmm.
teaching statement, a research statement, and like my writing sample,
Hmm.
and maybe they all call it different things, diversity or
Well,
whatever.
I'm wondering in this climate if that has been eliminated. So a diversity statement was something that was not always there. Like again, 20 years ago, there was no request for a diversity statement. I used to feel some kind of way about them because I felt like they were actually more work on people who were actually doing the work of diversity as opposed to the people who were receiving, who were hiring. And I think a lot of institutions that were asking for diversity statements were not actually committed to diversity in any particular kind of way. So it felt very performative, but in a way that put a lot of labor on the person who's applying for the job. So, I'm not messed up about not having to do a diversity statement when you're on the job market. But yes, that became part of the application package for a lot of people in pre 2024, I would say, pre
Yeah, yeah.
2025.
I will say that part felt very strange to write. And even when I took that course, where we got our materials together, like the professor teaching the course was like, this is very strange and uncomfortable to have to sit down and write this. And um, it was. But I
Hmm.
also feel like with all of my materials,
Hmm.
I've had the mindset that I'm gonna be myself. Like
Yes,
whatever it
yes,
is, I want to put myself onto the page. I want the
absolutely.
reading the application to see Spencer.
Hmm.
So that's really what I did. I tried to be as earnest as possible
Hmm.
in all of the materials. And I think I tailored all of the cover letters. I mean,
Hmm.
of course, but I spent a lot of time looking at departments and
Hmm.
trying to show how my work, my teaching, my self
Hmm.
as a philosopher could align with or fit with the department.
Hmm.
I remember spending a ton of time on that,
Yeah.
tailoring the cover letters.
Hmm.
Um, and then everything else, I guess, was pretty standard. I'm really
Hmm.
glad that I took that course because
Yeah.
having those materials or at least like a baseline sketch of them
Hmm.
by the end of like spring semester
Hmm.
was fantastic.
I love it.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it just causes so much stress.
Yes, it's stressful applying.
Anxiety.
Well, again, one of the things about being an academic is that you're constantly applying for the next thing, right? Like there seems to be not a respite. It's like you're in high school and then you're applying to get to college. You're in college, you're applying to get in grad school. You're in grad school, you're applying to get into a tenure track position. You get a tenure track position, then you have to like go up for tenure and then go up for full and all of the other things. So it's like you're constantly in this, you're never really like resting on your laurels, right? Like you're constantly applying for or looking to the next thing. And so that can be stressful. But I love that you were self-aware enough, like this strategy, not that you were, I'm calling it a strategy, but it doesn't have to be thought of as a strategy, but this approach to it of like, I want to show up as who I am, not somebody I'm not, And I think that is actually a strength that makes you more appealing when you're on the job market, as opposed to like trying to fit into what you think everybody else wants. So sometimes I think people are like, well, what does the job market look like, and what are people hiring for? And you don't actually have like a vested interest or passion or connection to whatever your areas of specialization are. And I think that comes through on the job market, where it's like you're not actually invested in a particular way in what your research is, or what you're teaching and things like that. And conversely, I think when you show up as like your whole self and you really are into the thing that you're doing, it makes, like, when you're invested in a thing, it makes other people want to be invested in a thing and support you in, achieving the thing. So I love this insight that you had of like, I'm going to show up as like my whole self in these materials and in the areas of specialization that I choose, even if some grad students are being haters. And I think that actually works out for in our favor when we do that, right? And the other thing is, it's hard to pretend to be somebody that you are not. Like, it's exhausting, it's extractive, and it's just hard to keep up. So it's like, if you're pretending that you're interested in whatever area of philosophy, or pretending that you're interested in whatever institution, it can be exhausting to kind of keep up that charade over time and just kind of depletes you. So I'm glad that you were just intentional about like how you showed up in those job materials, and what you're specializing in. I love that. Do you want to talk a little bit about, so now again, I'm thinking about people who might be in grad school and about to go on the job market, right? So there are all of the job materials. Oh, you also mentioned, and I think this is important to highlight, tailoring your letters. So of course there are some basic things that are going to be the same in all of your letters in terms of like, your areas of specialization, what you work on, but really looking at the different departments and how you can contribute to and enhance what they offer. I think that does also stand out in a letter, like, oh, this person has done their research, like, and having been on a lot of hiring committees and done a lot of interviews, like that the committee does pay attention to letters that feel tailored, that they've done the research, or when you're in the interview, you're like, oh, they actually are invested and have done their research about like the department and how they would fit in here, and what we, how we can like collaborate and things like that. So I love that you did that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you just want me to talk about more about
Oh, other aspects of it. So, so you send out your letter, you send out your package when you're applying, and then different institutions will reach back out to you and say, we would like to have an interview. And sometimes that interview might be like a Zoom interview ahead of a on-campus interview, right? So there are stages to the interviewing process. So just talk through those stages.
Yeah, so once I submitted the materials, it did take a while to hear back from most of these places. I heard back from one school that it was the first school I heard back from, and they were sort of skipping the Zoom interview and they went straight to wanting
Mm-hmm.
a campus visit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think that was the first school that I heard back from.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also, I guess the next step for most other places was a Zoom interview.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which I think was just 30 minutes, so it was pretty quick.
Yeah.
And it was just with the, I guess, hiring committee,
Mm-hmm.
the search committee, um, and pretty general questions that I received about my research and my teaching. I think your standard questions,
Mm-hmm.
so more detailed questions about my writing sample.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Yeah, so that was the Zoom interview, and then the
Mm-hmm.
next step after that was the campus visit,
Mm-hmm.
which was 2 days. So I did two campus visits.
Mm-hmm.
I will say I did them back to back. So I did
Mm-hmm.
like a Monday, Tuesday, and then a Wednesday, Thursday.
Oh, wow.
That was hard.
Exhausting. Yeah. Because
That was
campus visits
very,
are exhausting.
yeah.
Yeah. Because you're in
Uh,
back to back to back meetings when you're on campus. So you're going to campus, you're having breakfast with somebody, you're having lunch with somebody, you're giving your talk. Sometimes people want to give you like want you to give a sample teaching,
okay.
teach a sample class. You're meeting with administrators, you're meeting with students, you're meeting with faculty members. Like, it literally is like 12-hour days back to back. So for you to do that 2 days at one institution followed by 2 days at another institution, I imagine you were like done with everything at the end of that.
I was. I definitely was. It was exhausting, lots of meetings, lots of talking, and you just really have to be on the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's hard if you're not like super social. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I have anxiety. Like I just think yeah, leading up to the visits and then
Mm-hmm.
the visits themselves, I was
Mm-hmm.
like so nervous.
Yeah.
I was nervous for the job talks,
Mm-hmm.
which that's like the big I think it feels like the big thing of the
Yeah.
campus. You give this like hour-long presentation followed by like an hour of questions. Um, and I will say I chose to do new research for that. So I didn't use any from my
Mm,
dissertation. That was an intentional choice. It was
mm-hmm,
what I was more excited about at the time,
mm-hmm.
having like worked on the dissertation. But I also wanted to show that I have new ideas. Like
Yeah.
I can do more things than what I do in this dissertation.
Mm-hmm.
I got a lot of advice saying that I should not do that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm sure you got some pushback on
Yeah, I
that.
got a lot of pushback and I sort of like held firm and was like, this is what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad that I made that decision. I think
Yeah.
it was the best, just to show that I have a full research agenda, right?
Yeah.
Um, but it also made it more nerve-wracking. Like this isn't something that I've worked on and teased
Yeah.
out for months or years or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I was nervous.
Yes,
Nervous,
understandably so.
yeah, yeah,
But you took a risk, but you were like betting on yourself. And well, I think part of what I'm hearing too is there is a kind of confidence that you have to have, which isn't hubris, but at a certain point, you have to like trust your intuition, trust your gut, trust whatever that internal kind of again compass or understanding is of like, yeah, this is where I need to go. This is what I need to do. And sometimes it aligns with what your mentors and everybody thinks you should do, and sometimes it doesn't. But it's like if you have a strong enough sense of self and like trust that aspect of yourself, then you know when you can say like, well, no, I understand the advice that you're giving me, but I really need to go in this direction. And it's like you get both the positive and potential negative consequences of that, right? Like in this case, it really worked out. If for some reason it didn't work out, again, you still had another year to fall back on where you could do something different the next time around.
right, right.
So I'm glad you have this track record of like trusting yourself and it working out while also knowing if it doesn't work out, you can still pivot and come back from something not working out.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Okay, well, let's get a little bit. I mean, we've talked about your areas of specialization, but is there anything you'd like to share about your research? Like, what was the dissertation research like? What was the new research? What was the new project that you were working on when you did the job talk? And just like, where are you in terms of your research right now? What's exciting you about your work?
Yeah. So my dissertation, I was sort of bringing together critical phenomenology and philosophy of race, uh,
Mm-hmm.
argue that anti-Blackness produces bodily behavior that can interpolate subjects
Mm-hmm.
using some Althusser and like 20th century French philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was an exciting dissertation for me. It's still an exciting project for me,
Mm-hmm.
that I am continuing to work on, and expand in some important ways. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I continue to be excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
And the job talk that I did, I think, is maybe especially exciting for this conversation because it
Mm-hmm.
relates a bit to my Spelman experience.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got to grad school, one of the biggest or hardest things for me, especially when we started in-person classes,
Mm-hmm.
bodily behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt like we had to sit so still in the classroom and we had
Mm-hmm.
to be so composed and we had to limit or restrict our facial expressions, right? Um, and this was strange because so much of the communication I felt at Spelman was nonverbal
Mm-hmm.
or, consisted of like moans or groans in response to something or
Mm-hmm.
snapping or rolling our eyes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that just seemed non-existent at
Mm-hmm.
Northwestern. And I think it negatively impacted my own learning.
Mm-hmm.
So my job talk was on Black embodied epistemologies and
Mm-hmm.
epistemic injustice in the classroom,
Yes.
specifically arguing that Black embodied epistemologies are foreclosed due to some of the spoken and unspoken rules of bodily behavior and
Mm-hmm.
comportment in the classroom space.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, So I loved that project. I did it for the job talk, and then, post job talk, I had to finish the dissertation. So I wasn't working on it anymore, but am continuing to work on some of those ideas because I
Mm-hmm.
think it's really important to me personally, but also
Mm-hmm.
something I think about a lot with Black students in general, and even
Mm-hmm.
think of sort of the unfair statistics of like Black students being disciplined, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot
Mm-hmm.
of that actually has to do with certain behaviors, especially bodily behaviors that
Mm-hmm.
maybe are normal or typical within Black families or in the
Mm-hmm.
home or in, say, like Black churches, right? But
Mm-hmm.
not. allowed or are seen as disrespectful,
Mm-hmm.
disruptive in
Mm-hmm.
in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
So that project is very important to me. It felt important for me to do that as my job talk for
Yeah.
reasons. Um, so yeah.
I love this. I'm think so for people who may not know what like embodied epistemologies are, like epistemology is like the study of knowledge. How do you know what you know? Different ways of knowing. And the embodied part is just like literally your physical, like the physicality aspects of it. I appreciate the examples you're giving in the classroom, and I want to think about two examples for people again who might be out who might be like, what are they talking about right now? So with kids, for example, like I have four kids. I can remember. So you give an example of like sometimes like when you are a Black person in this space, you are engaging kind of bodily behaviors that are frowned upon, that are normalized and fine and affirmed in your family or in the church or whatever the case may be, but get vilified in like a classroom environment. But I also found that it's the case, and this is also gendered as well, that a young black boy, for example, can engage in the exact same bodily behaviors as a young white boy, and he gets criminalized for it. And the black child gets criminalized for it, and the white child does not, right? So it's both different embodied behaviors, but also what gets mapped onto those bodily behaviors. And so for me, having two sons and two daughters, I noticed very early on, my sons in particular had their actions and behaviors criminalized literally from like preschool and kindergarten and elementary school. Whereas with the daughters, typically they were seen as like they weren't perceived as a threat until like say middle school. Then it was like, well, they're too sassy, they talk back too much, they're too this, right? So I noticed different gender dynamics in terms of how they were received in classroom spaces, based on like the race and gender intersections. But I love that you're doing the work on the project. And then another example I think that might land with people who are like who are just thinking about other examples, even looking at what happened with like the U.S. Open and these Black women tennis players, right? And being in spaces where, there are some spaces where it's like, oh, we're supposed to be white and quiet and collected and cool and not expressive, in the space versus like having like Black folks cheering in the crowds or Black players, or how different reactions are given to like Black women who emote in a particular kind of way on the court versus their white women or their male counterparts. So that's another example, just because I know people are thinking about coming off of the U.S. Open, just like the presence of these Black women in that space, which shout out to, the people who laid the foundation for all of these Black women to be there
Right,
now. But there's been a lot of conversation about that going on. So that would be like another, like kind of popular culture or professional athletic example of what you're talking about.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about La Belle Vie Writers now. How did you hear about that? And just share what some of your experience has been and what you've been working on in there.
Yeah. I don't recall how I heard about it actually. I think maybe I was just added to your email list
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
heard about it that way, if I'm
Hmm.
not mistaken.
Yeah.
But never participated in La Belle Vie Writers
Mhm.
until I was dissertating,
Yes.
and really until I was in the final stretch.
Yes.
Because I needed to get it done. I think this was actually after I had already gotten the job. So like there was no
Yeah.
choice. I had to get
Yeah.
it
It's like you have to finish the dissertation to go to the job that you
done.
have accepted. Yes.
Exactly. So I was just trying to finish the dissertation and I felt like I needed some structure. I was working these crazy hours and, writing until 2 a.m. And it wasn't something that was sustainable for me, although I know
Yeah.
some people can work well that way. So I knew that you did sort of morning and afternoon writing groups with La
Hmm.
Belle Writers
Hmm.
and just decided to join one week.
Yay.
Um, and it was great structure for me.
Hmm.
So I was on Central Standard Time and so I
Yes.
get on at 8. This is way earlier than I usually
Yes.
was
Yes.
waking up. But it was great structure for me to wake up early and
Hmm.
open my laptop and start writing in
Hmm.
the morning. It made me feel like I was productive, even if I didn't do anything for the rest of the day. I had
Hmm.
written 2 hours in the morning.
Yeah.
So that was so helpful and necessary for me. I don't think I would have finished the dissertation without it,
Yeah.
honestly. Because also it's a community, right?
Yes.
So being able to sit there and see other people who are writing and talking about their successes, but also talking about their struggles. And
Yeah.
at the end, we sort of recap or reflect or what have you. And
Hmm.
some days people would say, writing was hard for me today.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't get much done. And I think it allows you to feel very seen, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so that community is just the best.
Yeah.
Obviously I'm still apart, and I don't see myself ever leaving because
Oh,
um yeah, it's just so nice to write in community with other
yeah.
people who have similar goals,
Mm-hmm.
and just want to write words and have thoughts
Yeah.
and share them. And I read something recently about how spiders, when they're making webs, it's them externalizing their cognition.
Mm.
And that has been how I've been thinking about writing a lot recently.
Yes.
It's so nice to sort of make my cognizing external in
Yes.
community with other people.
I
So,
love this metaphor.
yeah.
I love this metaphor. Yeah, I mean, I love that you came in. Well, first of all, shout out to the people who are in different time zones because I'm on well, you're on the East Coast now too, but we're in the Eastern time zone. So it's like 9 to 11 Eastern time, and then we do like that check-in and group coaching stuff at 11. But there are people who are on the Central time, there are people who are on the West Coast who are coming in at like, 6 in the morning for them. And so shout out to the people who are like, I'm committed to writing in community and I'm willing to join earlier. Although sometimes West Coast people will just come to the afternoon sessions. But I love that you kind of took advantage of it to kind of get through that home stretch and final stretch with the dissertation. And again, like sometimes being in the academy in general, like there's this image of the ivory tower and the person up on the mountaintop and like the lone scholar, lone star kind of thing. And it can be very isolating and alienating. So I'm really intentional about like building these community spaces where we can like, it doesn't have, you can write in community, you can be in community when you write. And I also love that it is intergenerational. So we have like a couple of grad students who were like maybe just finished up their comprehensive exams or their dissertation or dissertating, or people like you who are like, just starting out the tenure track, and then people who are full professors, right? And so it's a beautiful both intergenerational space in terms of age, but also in terms of like rank and things like that, in terms of where people are. So you can ask different questions and get different, inputs and insights from people who are just at different stages. And I think it's also helpful to see when you're in the earlier stages of it, to be able to see people who've made it through what that kind of trajectory can look like, to know that like, if you want to do that, you can do that and it's possible. And you have like just a tangible model of somebody who's done that. So I also appreciate that about the space and just how generous people are with, sharing again, whether it's the successes and the challenges or just the resources of like, this is my experience with this thing. Like people are very generous in that space. So I love it for that reason too.
Yeah, I also just feel very affirmed in that space. And
Hmm.
I can say, like I will always share what I'm doing, and you always will say, well, you just defended a dissertation,
Yes.
started a job, and you just did this and that. And like it makes me feel like, okay, I don't have to be putting, exorbitant amounts of pressure on myself because I did
Yes.
do a lot, and I have people affirming that this is hard and I can
Yes.
give myself grace.
Yes, absolutely. I'm glad that you named that. Yes, because I'm literally, whenever you're like, okay, so I just defended my dissertation and then I just started a new job and moved like, from the Midwest to the East Coast. And I just submitted an article and I just submitted an abstract. And it's just like, okay, like I want to celebrate. It's amazing that you're doing all those things, but you don't have to keep going like at this clip and at this rate. So like, celebrate what you're getting done. I think when you're in the flow of thing, it's fine to let things flow, but like just releasing that pressure of like, it always has to be the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. Because one of the things that I've also noticed in academia, and I'm sure it's true of other industries and professions as well, but it is always like it's rare that we can stop and just enjoy and celebrate like this step of the thing. So it's literally like it's like you'll finish the dissertation, it's like, okay, well, when is the book coming out? And it's like you're literally talking about the book that just got published, and it's like, well, what's the next project? And it's like, can we talk about this beautiful book that I literally just like hot off of the presses? Can we just sit with this thing that has already been done? And so for me, I've always been really intentional about like celebrating the small and big wins along the way instead of always looking to like what's the next thing, what's the next thing, what's the next thing. And so yes, so I'm really intentional about like those celebrations and reminding you like you have done a lot, and be proud of that. So I'm glad that that has landed.
No, it's been much appreciated. And I thought of you yesterday because my like doctoral regalia came in the mail.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I'm just gonna sit in this. I'm just happy to be
Yes.
done with this. I don't have to be thinking about like the book right now.
Yes, like you,
Yeah.
yes, I love that you have your regalia. Yes, take pictures in it if you want to take pictures in it. And are you going to participate in like the graduation ceremonies and things like that at George Western? Like, will you be a faculty person at the graduations? Are you thinking about doing that in the spring? Or
Um,
did you just order it because you're just like, I just want to have it?
I don't know. So I could participate, like I could walk in my own graduation at the
Right.
Western. Uh,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Okay.
because I defended, well, I
Like
defended
after
before
the spring
graduation, but
graduation.
after the deadline,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Um, I might. We'll
Okay.
see.
No, you
I,
don't have to. I was just wondering.
yeah.
Like that's one of the things that people do with the regalia, like post graduation. But are you going to go back to Northwestern for is it a December graduation?
No, it's not until the spring.
Oh, okay.
So I guess I just will have to see about my schedule in this spring.
Okay.
But I want to because like your advisor hoods you, right? Um,
Yes, you get hood. Yes, the hooding ceremony is a thing. So I would say I don't think it necessarily needs to depend on your schedule. I think you can look at the dates and just block off if you're teaching or something. Well, no, because you're on fellowship this year. So yeah, I don't know what possibly could be on your schedule that would prevent you from doing that thing that you want to do.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I'll do that. I think that would be special.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to say just about like how philosophy has informed like how you've moved through life in different ways? Like again, I find it remarkable and amazing and fabulous that you in high school were like going to the philosophy section at Barnes and Noble and have let this guide you in this way. But do you want to say any more just about how, philosophy has been like a presence and an influence for you?
Yeah. So I always say that I've always been a philosopher. I've always had big questions. I've always been
Mm-hmm.
curious about the world and the nature of things in the
Mm-hmm.
world. Um, but I think, being an academic philosopher is cool.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I always say that like the people who are the philosophers in my life are the Black women in my life,
Yes.
whether they're educated or not educated. Um, just being in community with my sisters, with
Yes.
my elders, right?
Yes.
I'm hearing philosophy in my community,
Absolutely.
even from those folks where education was not accessible for them.
Right. Not the formal education.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so I think that has been so important
Hmm.
for me to name even.
Yes.
I think there are so many people that I'm in community with who are doing far better philosophy than anything that is happening in the academy.
Yeah.
And that's not being, I guess, like seen or publicized in the way that we think of in the academy.
Hmm.
So I think I like that doing academic philosophy has given me that perspective, right? Of
Hmm.
being able to be in my sort of casual interpersonal relationships and also see how people are saying, like, are making radical claims and arguing
Yeah.
and backing them up. And
Yes.
yeah, and I also think it gives me insight into myself, right?
Yeah.
And my own understanding of the world, even as a kid. I remember in high school, I kept saying, this place is like a prison. And then I read Foucault, right?
Yes.
Um,
Yes. And the
and
whole school to prison pipeline stuff. Yeah.
exactly. So I just think there's this really special way of viewing the world that we can find in philosophy, in
Hmm.
academic philosophy, but also outside of academic philosophy, because
Hmm.
so much of that philosophical work is happening
Yes.
not in the academy and among
Yes.
my community and with my sisters and
Hmm.
all of those great things. Yeah.
I love this so much. I appreciate you naming that because it is so important. Sometimes people do lose their self in the process of like going to college, going to grad school, going into the academy. And so I love that you have been very intentional about staying connected to community and rooted in community and the philosophy that exists there that again might not be the formal training that we think about, but is still relevant and more impactful and as important or more important than some of the stuff that's happening in
Yeah.
academia. So I really appreciate you naming it. And you can do both and, right? Like it doesn't have to be the one or the other. So I love that you are again just been on your own path and guided on your own path.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's even nice to see how sharing my sort of academic philosophy
Hmm.
sort of gives other people language, and specifically
Hmm.
like in my community. So I
Yeah.
remember the first time I presented like some of the stuff that's in my dissertation, showing how sort of like racist interpolation, can occur through bodily behaviors.
Hmm.
My mom was calling me at least once a week, and she was like, I think I just got interpolated in the grocery store. And that was so meaningful to me that
Yes.
is
Yes.
that was going to happen anyway. You were
Right.
going to notice that that was happening anyway, but now
Yeah.
there's this cool language to understand what's happening in that encounter.
Yes.
So that's special to me too.
That's beautiful. Okay, is there anything else that you want to share or a question I didn't ask that you would have liked to be asked to answer?
Um, I don't think so. I can just
Yeah.
say I'm so grateful for you, for Belle Vie Writers,
Yes.
all of it. Yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you for joining me. This has been a great conversation. And again, I'm glad we have people just who are at different stages. So I love that you can speak more recently to like whereas Lena and I were at Spelman 20 years ago, right? Like 20 plus years ago. I love that you can speak to a more recent experience. And so I think that will connect with a lot of people in a lot of different ways. So thank you for taking the time to talk to me. And I'll see you in my Belle Vie Writers tomorrow.
Yes, absolutely.
All
Thank you.
right. You're welcome. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.